your troubles in your old keep bag and smile, smile, smile. While you the Lucifer to light you'll bang, smile, boys, at the smile.
The First World War was just that. It was the first global conflict, and with it came new terms such as trench warfare and tank. These words took on terrifying new meanings. While these were terms describing war, one word in particular actually did damage and caused friction between neighbours. The word was alien. No, not the sort of alien you see in the movies or in cartoons. This term referred specifically to anyone who wasn't considered to be British, usually Germans, Austrians, Russians and Jews. It was a way of identifying folk who might be a danger to Britain during wartime, and a means by which they could be monitored. All across the country, so-called watch committees were set up to identify and monitor so-called aliens. Whether they be friendly aliens, enemy aliens, or those married to or the children of aliens, all were to be identified and monitored. Strange cases began to appear in the courts. For example, a so-called alien suspected of keeping carrier pigeons to send messages to the enemy in Germany. Such cases were often based on very shaky evidence, such as pigeon feathers being found in someone's backyard, and many cases were successfully defended. But the fact remains, being identified as an alien was not a good thing. But this was not only a way of identifying the enemy, it was an effective method for learning to hate and fear the enemy. Rumours spread that German butchers and bakers put poison into their food. People were spat on in the street, and angry young Englishmen rioted, smashing the windows of shops and homes of anyone they believed to be an enemy alien. In North Shields on the 15th of May 1915, ugly scenes unfolded. Around 7 o'clock in the evening, crowds began to assemble at the east and west ends of town. Young men started to march through the streets, singing patriotic songs. The police monitored the crowds as they marched. Suddenly the young men took to attacking butchers. Windows were smashed, but there was no looting. By 10 p.m, a small group broke the windows of a baker's in Prudder Street and went on to attack other shops. The worst was J.R. Cook on Savile Street West, J. Balbach on Bedford Street, and Mr. Walther's shop on Camden Street. At around 11 p.m, a group broke the windows of a general dealer in Stevenson Street, run by the English wife of an interned German. She had been left penniless with 3 children while her husband was in prison. Finally, Mr. Harding's shop on Railway Street was surrounded but left alone when the crowd realised that he was English. He had 2 brothers in the army and 1 in the navy. There were only 2 arrests during the whole evening. The shop owners did attempt to gain compensation for the horrendous outburst of violence, but they received far less from the authorities than they claimed. So you see, as horrific as the First World War was, with trench warfare and tanks, an equally horrific idea was taking root in Britain. The idea of the enemy. The idea that the enemy could be next door. And the idea that it was your duty to turn on your neighbour.
All your troubles in